At the grocery store, a woman grabbed my son from me. After parking in the parking lot of Walmart, I gently took my son's hand and led him into the store. He babbled away happily, pointing at things as we walked. I grabbed a large cart and placed my son in the seat, buckling him in safely before heading toward the food section of the store. I made faces at him as we walked, and he giggled at me. He was such a happy kid. I stopped the cart by the milk and turned around for a second to grab a gallon of whole milk when I heard my son cry out. It was a sound full of fear that made my blood run cold. I spun around and dropped the milk on the floor, ignoring the mess I made as I watched an older lady rip my son out of his seat and take off with him. I jerked out of my stupor a second later and raced after them, shouting, "Stop!" I could feel myself close to tears as the lady got closer to the exit. I couldn't lose my son. I yelled at other customers to stop her, but no one did anything but stare or ignore the commotion. I put on an extra burst of speed, cutting her off at the exit. "Give me back my son," I growled breathlessly. The woman held my kid tighter, and I watched him squirm and cry harder. He twisted in the woman's arms and reached for me, crying for his daddy, but the lady ignored him, squeezing him. "This isn't your son," she protested. I glared at her in shock. "What? You can't tell me he isn't my son." The lady took a step backward. "I'm saving him from you," she insisted. "Leave before I call the cops." I literally started laughing and said, "Please, call the cops. I can't wait to tell them I caught you kidnapping my boy." "What is going on here?" someone new demanded, strolling up to us. He had an aura of confidence about him, and I knew he had to be someone important with his dress shirt and golden name tag. "Mike, store manager." The lady continued, "Sir, he was kidnapping this poor baby." I couldn't believe this. I said, "You're delusional, lady. That baby, as you call him, is my son." The manager glanced between us with a raised eyebrow. Finally, he turned his attention to me. "Can you prove that, sir?" I gaped at them. This couldn't be happening. "I don't have the papers with me," I replied. "I don't bring his information with me because I never expect to be interrogated at the grocery store." "I called the cops, Mike," one of the cashiers called to the man. He nodded. "Let me call my wife," I muttered, already grabbing my cell phone from my pocket. She picked up on the third ring, sounding stressed. I quickly explained the situation, and I could almost feel her rage through the phone as she promised to be here as soon as possible. I felt bad because she had to leave work early, but she was determined. She had to rush home first to get the papers to prove he was our son. A few minutes later, the police arrived, and we explained our side of the story. I could tell the cops believed the lady more than me, and I was starting to get desperate. My son was still crying for me, huge tears rolling down his chubby cheeks as he was trying to get to me, but the cops were blocking his attempts. It made my blood boil. My wife finally arrived with the papers and handed them to the police officers. "As you can see, officers, we adopted my son as a baby. He may not look like us, but we are most definitely his parents. So can we please take him and leave?" The woman's face grew red with embarrassment or rage. I couldn't even tell. She looked like she was about to explode. "You would let this man have a white child?" Silence fell as everyone stared at her in shock. One of the officers spoke up. "Ma'am, you know that lying like that is a crime. We're going to need you to come to the station with us." They apologized to us and dragged the screaming woman out of Walmart. I rushed to my son and scooped him up in my arms, hugging him tightly as he continued crying into my shoulder. I had to take him home, and I promised myself I wouldn't return to that Walmart. Sometime later, CPS took my son away after the birth mother changed her mind about the adoption, wanting him back.